Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I would like to look at a great example of what we call our Holy Grail trade setup that unfolded on a 3-minute chart of the Russell Index yesterday. This was a beautiful example because we were looking at the larger degree support that nailed the low of the days in 3 out of the 4 E-minis yesterday in our training webinar, which was live yesterday. So it's a good example of seeing the MTPredictor advanced analysis after it's unfolded from what we said in our webinar yesterday. First point I want to stress is that all Holy Grail trade setups, or most of them, you can see here, will be against the STF colour. This is because it's the first correction in a new trend, and the STF, like any normal standard technical indicator, is lagging and therefore is always going to be slow to react and against the new trend colour. So this would be red, so normal traders, standard traders will not be looking to buy. However, that's why we have our DPs, which are leading indicators, and let me show you what I mean. For this we'll go to the 15-minute chart. It's what we always do. We look to the large degree time frame first and foremost, and if we look at these, I'll just take these off. Now, what we had in our webinar yesterday as an example was this example of the NQ. We had, as the market, even before the market opened yesterday, we had our decision point tool, which was dead easy to use. We just click on the prior pivot low, which was here, and as you can see, this decision point level is on the chart in advance before the market gets there. If we scroll forward, you can see that this actually nailed the very low of the day on the NQ yesterday. Please remember that we actually had these, and we were talking about these in a live trading room yesterday just as the market was reaching this level. We were saying that this was probably going to be a support level. Coming in on the Russell Index, which I'll look at in a bit more detail in a minute, as you can see, this actually here nailed the low of the day as well. If I go to the next market, which is the ES, I'll just take this off again just to show you how we do this. Again, it was dead easy before the market opened. Click on that pivot there. There's our level on the chart in advance. Market goes down, and as you see, that nailed the very low of the day for you yesterday, as the market then rallied strongly for the rest of the day. The only market that didn't have a good one was the YM. As you can see, it went straight through and kept on going down. But the point being is that 3 out of the 4 E-minis yesterday, but most importantly the ES, because that tends to be the boss, were at DP support on our 15-minute charts. There we go, you can see all 3 of them right at DP support. So what does that mean for our 3-minute charts? Well, if I go to the 3-minute charts now, you can see here's the ES support zone again. I've put that on there. You can see that nailed the low and allowed the market to rally. What that means first and foremost for advanced traders is because they now know the large degree trend is up, advanced traders would be avoiding sell setups. So in other words, they would have avoided these 2 sell setups here. These 2 here were actually one setup because it was a double top. So that's the first thing about using the large degree trend, is that it helps you avoid what would be otherwise losing trades. The other, that's the NQ. Great, as you can see on the NQ, lovely example, nailed the low of the day, market rallied strongly. But the market I want to look at, I'll just put that DP on. So if I scroll out, DP from, there's the pivot there, drag that across, and as you can see, nailed the absolute low of the day perfectly. So these are great tools to have on your charts before the market even got there. Remember, this was actually on your chart. If I scroll back, this was actually on your chart way before the market even got there. So you knew as the Russell Index was coming down here, that this was a level where support was likely. And that's exactly what happened, and it's, as you can see, that tagged the low of the day beautifully. But the other consequence of this is because we knew that this was larger degree support on 3 out of our 4 US E-minis, therefore the larger degree trend was up. What we can now look for is our Holy Grail trade setups. Do you remember? These are the initial move off an important low, which is what we had here. We then look for the initial correction, which we've got here, to unfold as an ABC. In this example, it came into our TS3 buy setup. The reason we have a history triangle here and then another TS3 setup is because this was actually a double bottom. But in reality, you'd have been trading off the first setup, and if I look at the data for the low of this bar, you can see it was 21.5 and our stop would have been at 21.4. So this long trade would not have been stopped out. So in reality there was just one trade here. So what does it mean with our Holy Grail trade setup? Well, because we're anticipating this to be a wave 2, we're looking for the rally off this not to go to our first target, which would have been a nice plus 3.7R trade, but we're actually looking for it to go to our typical wave 3 WPT, which is up here, because we're anticipating the move off a wave 2 low to go to the wave 3 target, which is on the chart there for you. So if we place the analysis on the chart to go to there, you can see we're anticipating a potential 10R trade. So therefore this was a great trade to consider. Now the market didn't quite reach it, so let's put the risk reward on as of the close, because we'll be aiming for this higher target, but it only got to the close. So in reality the profit was plus 8.7R. And this is what I was talking about in yesterday's webinar, and why I keep going on about these Holy Grail trade setups, because they are the best trade setups in the book. The reason being is that because the profit here you can see was just over $3,000, all for an initial risk of around $350. Remember, we keep our initial risk small and under control by using correct position sizing, which varies the contracts, lots and shares, to keep our risk under 2% of, in this case, a sample $20,000 account. So that keeps our initial risk small, but the beauty of this trade is because a wave 3 is normally the strongest and longest elite wave move, normally the profits are much greater than the initial risks, or in other words the losses when they come through. And as you can see, this was an absolutely brilliant example of the Holy Grail trade setup, where the profit at plus 8.7R was much greater than the initial risk we had here. But it was all set up because of our DPs on our 15-minute charts, and we actually knew in advance, that's the important point, we knew in advance that this was a good support zone where the 15-minute charts were likely to find support. The 4 E-minis then rallied nicely off that support zone, and that allowed us then to look for our initial rally, our initial correction unfolding as an ABC. We then anticipated that to be a wave 2. We were then going for our typical wave 3 WPT target, and that was a great example yesterday of not only our 15-minute DPs giving us leading indicators of support and resistance, but also a great example of the Holy Grail trade setup on a 3-minute chart of the Russell Index yesterday. So a very good day for MTPredictor customers yesterday, particularly on this trade setup here.